Hi, I'm Dex Gelfand, and I'm here to give another talk about my work in therapeutic spiritual counseling, in this case, in relation to the subject of Scientology. I have a Scientology background. At one time, I was what was called the lead HGC auditor of the New York City organization, which means in effect that I was considered the top counselor for the organization of New York City. I was involved for several years, and most of my participants, or at least many of them, have some Scientology backgrounds. And a lot of questions get asked. If you look on my old website, you'll see a lot of references to Scientology because I gradually evolved out of it. But I began my practice as a Scientology counselor. But as back in the days when I worked for the organization, I became more and more disenchanted with the effectiveness of the techniques, with certain choices in how they were supposed to be run that I felt were not for the individual's best benefit, but more about what I call keeping the hamsters on the wheels. Things could have been done better. One major fault of Scientology is, and I will tell you the definition of Scientology counseling, which is called auditing from the Scientology Technical Dictionary. The definition given is restimulating charge in order to discharge it. Now I'll define what that means in common terms. It means to find things within the person that are disturbing to them, so that you can then address those things and relieve them of those disturbances within them. Now, the problem with this is that we're not, in doing Scientology, they're not taking up what you come there hoping to fix, what you come there hoping to change. They're not addressing your dreams, your goals, the disturbing elements you're aware of that you want to resolve, the moments of shock that stay with you, the times when you're not being yourself, when you feel dysfunctional in certain situations. That's not the focus of Scientology. The focus is a generic and standard sequence of many processes or techniques that is the same. Like I said, it's generic for every single person. And so I've had so many participants in the way that I work now be so thrilled to be able to finally address what's on their mind. Very often they explain very happily that now they've just resolved, or they're getting to resolve, they're getting to talk about and address what they expected Scientology to address for them, what they were led to believe they were going to benefit from. The common recruiting chatter between a Scientologist and someone else is, tell me something that's disturbing you, that's failing you, what's ruining your life. The person explains something and says, I hate this about myself, or I wish I could change that. And the answer is, Scientology can help you with that. Scientology can handle that. And then after a very short introduction, you find yourself on this long runway of processes and techniques where instead they're finding the disturbing things in you that are below your consciousness, that are not consciously affecting you, and addressing those, and the relief that you get in addressing those kind of gives you the idea that you must be making progress, even if it's not showing up in your life, even if you're having the same essential problems and haven't gotten rid of the things you wanted to get rid of, or fixed the things you wanted to fix, or become the way you wanted to be. When this is occurring, how do they find these disturbing elements that that are so irrelevant that you don't even think about them? They use a device called an e-meter. Here's what one looks like. Okay, this is a Scientology e-meter, and you see the dial, and you see the needle, and the knobs you see here, and what this device is intended to do is to show and register things that you react to strongly or weakly, or that you don't react at all, meaning there's nothing disturbing there. And this device is used asking standard Scientology questions, looking for certain types of things, and the things that get a big reaction make that needle move on that dial quite a bit, are the things that will be taken up. So that's how Scientology counseling or auditing finds disturbing on some level items, but not disturbing to the point of being relevant to you, that they can bring out in you, and then use their techniques, which are not all bad, to resolve those things. But of course, the hook is that you get this feeling of euphoria when something is resolved, when you get this, the auditor sees this by the way the needle moves, what's called a floating needle or an FN. It moves like this, lazily back and forth. And you can feel so euphoric. And you come to conflate or equate that feeling of euphoria with having accomplished something meaningful for yourself personally and spiritually. And so it's a bit of a trick, because that thing that was just addressed that resulted in that euphoric feeling wasn't something that you came there looking to address. It wasn't the thing you needed or wanted fixed. And so they can go on forever with an incredibly long, like I said, runway of techniques and processes. And anytime they find something that moves that needle, they can work you through it, and very frequently, or sometimes, result in that great euphoric feeling. But it's a feeling, it's a sensation. And, it's just as pleasurable and just as addictive as a drug might be, or as a drink might be. It's very ephemeral, it's transient, doesn't last that long. But in that moment, you feel great. And out of the hundreds, if not thousands of participants I've worked with, I've actually had one or two among those with Scientology experience still talk about, but I didn't get that wonderful feeling that I got from this other session. Like they're seeking a sensation now. They've been sort of led off their own path of the things they were really interested in accomplishing. And they still have this urge, almost an addiction to, they should have that sensation that in their mind has become equated with major accomplishment. Now, the truth is that my participants very often, in fact, usually get that or a similar sensation, but the difference is it's accompanied by change and relief in something that's actually been disturbing to them, that's been a known problem to them for a long time, or it could be a short time for that matter. But it's a sense of relief about something that was troubling them on a regular basis in their actual lives, or something that was holding them back. It wasn't something they didn't know about from somewhere way in the past that has no bearing on their current life. So that's one way that people sort of will stay on that Scientology track for so very long, for decades, and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, whereas my approach is to address those things that you're talking about. The theory or basic principle of therapeutic spiritual counseling is that your very essence could be called your spiritual compass, that part in you that pays attention to and presents to pay attention to the things that are particularly getting in the way of your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, the things you want to accomplish. Okay, these are the meaningful things. And if you're permitted to, without being directed towards questions that go elsewhere, you can freely come up with exactly what it is you need to look at. And a lot of times, start to just break it down and deconstruct it just through the freedom to be there with someone who knows what's going on with you, understands, and takes you through it. Okay? And this has proven to work better than anything else, to be 100% effective and workable, is to just allow you to express what's on your mind. And I will ask you pertinent, relevant questions to that, just to help you bring all of that out so that you can accomplish what I call spiritual digestion, which is the basis of processing your negative or disturbing material. Another simple discovery I've made is that essentially all your difficulties, even those with other people, everything you're trying to resolve that's disturbing comes from your own internal oppositions, and that you develop mechanisms to try and resist or suppress these feelings. And that resistance, that actually holds these feelings in place, and that resistance prevents you from really being able to process it, look at it, and take it apart. That's another thing that's different about my approach. Okay? In Scientology, you're asked one of those questions because the meter's been used and it's shown that some disturbing feeling within you is triggered. You'll be asked questions, and unless you give a very quick to the point answer, the routine of Scientology through their training routines for auditors or counselors is that the auditor is going to say to you, I'll repeat the question. It's another way of saying you're not getting right to the answer. It's rushing you. It's telling you that what you're saying isn't relevant. But the way your mind works is that even when you express a specific thing, say a fear of audiences or a fear of crowds, okay? And if a Scientology auditor were to say, tell me about a fear of crowds, and you say, well, I'm getting this picture in my mind. You know, I was walking to school, you know, and I saw a robin, and then I noticed a blue jay, and, you know, I was thinking about, you know, these birds flying as I was going. At some point, the auditor is going to say, I'll repeat the question. Tell me about fear of crowds. And what that auditor is completely missing and creating a disturbance in the session for you, it's no longer smooth, is that the auditor, because of his training, is failing to understand that if you're just allowed to continue to express what your spiritual compass is presenting for you, at the end of that story is an answer to that, is exactly where that fear of crowds manifested, an example of where it's happened. And you start to spiritually digest the energies of those feelings if you're allowed to do so. That's one thing my participants love, is that they're not rushed. They're not told, I'll repeat the question, like, you're not giving me the right answer. Of course, it's impossible not to give the right answer. In a session, a participant being asked a question about what's of concern to them, whatever comes into their mind is going to relate to seeing the whole picture of that material and deconstructing it. So I just, as a therapeutic spiritual counselor, we bring that up and I just explain to you, you don't need to be speaking every moment because I understand what's happening within you. So you can be looking at what's coming up for you. There's going to be times when you don't want to be interrupted or disturbed to describe something that's happening for you, and that's fine. Convey whatever you want to convey in the moment when you're moved to convey it. This is very liberating, and it's one reason why the therapeutic spiritual counseling approach is so much more helpful and efficient and satisfying for the participant in arriving at accomplishing what they really want to accomplish for themselves. You know, you want to be rid of a feeling of anxiety or fear or dysfunction or attitudes that you don't feel you want to have come out of you at times that seem to come out. This is how it all gets resolved. And I try to explain this to all my Scientologist friends and people with that background, but what explains it best is what happens in a session. So let me give you some examples of what some of my clients have had to say in experiencing therapeutic spiritual counseling. And again, these are clients specifically who have had much experience in Scientology counseling. First one, I'm writing to give huge thanks to Dex and the great work that he did with me. I had risen to near the top of the Scientology bridge. That's Scientology's term for their sequence of processes called the bridge. And it's the theory of it is that you go up, higher, higher in levels. People really can be suckers for the idea of levels, that you're in a level above where you were before or above other people, whatever. Anyway, as a criteria of progress, when you're told you're not on level 2 anymore, now you're on level 3. But I digress. Anyway, I had risen near the top of the bridge while in Scientology, but only now with Dex was I able to accomplish my personal purposes that I had hoped to do then. Okay, I'm not going to go through all that he says here. I'm going to skip around. Every session addressed what was going on with me right there, what is right in front of my face, and it was remarkable. One day we started session, and I brought up something that was bugging me. And rather than follow any preconceived program, Dex set aside everything else and addressed that issue right there. It was mind-blowing. So Dex, thanks so much for your help. Here's another one. And again, all of these are people with plenty of Scientology experience. My last session with Dex blew me away. Things in my life began working the way I wanted them to. Now I have time for everything. Time has slowed down for me. The universe is presenting the things I need and want. I had to back off on computers, but now I don't back off. I'm remembering where I put things. The session filled me with elation. So I'll give you some more examples as we go along. Excuse me one moment. Yes, I should have had this closer. Pardon me. I explained in another video, Scientologists become indoctrinated in the continuity of the set sequence of Scientology processes called the grade chart or the bridge, which are assigned levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, grade 1, grade 0, grade 2, grade 3, and so forth. And so, to just take an excerpt from that video for you, many Scientologists who have not actually worked with me but watched my videos said that they're missing that continuity. You don't go from step 1 to step 2 to level 3 to level 4. And again, the only valid continuity is taking what comes up for your mind in the moment that it comes up, what your mind is presenting, and then taking up what your mind presents after that. And that is tailored completely to you, the individual, and it's the only continuity that matters. One of the interesting things about Scientology is that it apparently contradicts itself. Ron Hubbard, as the founder and claiming to have created the whole subject by himself, which he did not, mentions more than once the idea that for counseling or auditing to be effective, it must parallel the mind. Okay, what does that mean, to parallel the mind? It means that it should track right along with what's on your mind. But then, in the actual fact of the Scientology program, it's a generic program that doesn't take into account what's on your mind. It instead assumes or insists or indoctrinates that all these long sequences of techniques and processes are paralleling your mind, despite the fact that they're not tailored to you. Are we not all different? And Hubbard said another thing along the same lines. Audit the person in front of you. By that he means not something generic, but pay attention to and address the individual that's in front of you. But how is an auditor to do that when he is held strictly in line with the program, with the grade chart, with the set series of sequences? There's no deviating from the sequence. So that's the difference. But those are very, very valid principles, paralleling the mind and addressing the person in front of you and their specific mind and the things that are on their mind. That is as valid as counseling can be. I believe that the only valid function for any type of counselor, life coach, what have you, the only valid function is to facilitate the accomplishing of what you are here to accomplish, period. So therefore, we need to go by what is on your mind, okay? And unlike in Scientology, there's no using a meter to find things below the surface. That really is irrelevant. I'm not interested in using a trick to bring you to a point of euphoria so that you'll want to experience that feeling again and again and again. That feeling will naturally accompany any meaningful epiphany and spiritual liberation from something on your mind that's been disturbing. But it's not what we're going for. What we're going for is the change in outlook, the change in attitude, the greater trust and strength in self, becoming the best version of you by your own definition, which is the only one that matters. Let me take up a little bit more with you from here. I studied a lot of works of the people who contributed most, if not all, of the techniques and processes used in Scientology. Each one of them was eventually cast aside and thrown under the bus by Hubbard because he had to be the one that shined and he couldn't have other people shining around him. And back in 1965, he declared himself to be the only source of everything in Scientology. So he had to bury a lot of people to maintain that much adulation and support and submission to himself. They say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I believe Hubbard's Scientology is an example of that, which is not to say that there isn't a lot of good intent in the techniques and the way they're presented and used. It's not to say that people practicing Scientology aren't well-intended. It's not to say that they never get any good results. Okay, nothing is so one-dimensional. But overall, what I'm looking for is what's going to best facilitate the accomplishing of what you are seeking to accomplish for yourself. And I found that I had to take a different path from what I had learned from Scientology in order to go in that direction. Part of that, in studying the works of these people that made major contributions, people, I'll throw out a few names: John McMaster, Alan Walter, Dennis Stevens, John Galusha, and there are more. I benefited from looking what they came up with, particularly after they were out from under the yoke of Scientology and could work more freely. And they came up with better and more far-reaching techniques, each of them more or less covering some specific view of the mind or some specific area of the mind. It seemed like each of them seemed to think that this explained everything, but I had the vantage point of seeing how they fit together and where there were gaps in things, but I've been able to sort of sort all these things out, integrate these things, and the more I look, the more I learn, the more I can learn from my own observation and intuition. I've done so many tens of thousands of sessions with people, and this is my passion in life. So I generally understand and know what's happening in your mind during the course of the session. I think as a participant, my participants generally recognize that I'm understanding, so they don't feel any burden to over-explain things, so they can focus on what's happening for themselves. And that's a wonderful feeling. Now here's another participant of mine who not only went through the entire Scientology experience, but went on to explore some of these other paradigms, including those created by some of these people who had first contributed to Scientology. We'll call him Jay. Okay, my last session with Dex blew me away. I spent decades seeking and experiencing spiritual processing practices in search of what I'm now experiencing with Dex. Dex, I'm in awe of your depth and clarity, your spiritual, intuitive know-how. Absolutely brilliant. I feel light sensations, deep calm, and immense gratitude. Thanks, Dex. Okay, now here's another person I'm going to talk about who not only did the Scientology experience, but learned and trained as a Scientology auditor or counselor. So he's speaking from that viewpoint as well as from his personal experience in getting both counseling sessions with me and in my training him. I've trained a dozen or so practitioners. That's one of the services I offer, and I hope to train many, many more. Anyway, I'll read what he's had to say. I want to say a huge thank you, Dex, for all that we've done in our sessions together. Therapeutic spiritual counseling has enabled me to quickly and easily resolve issues that years of other therapies, techniques, workshops, and courses weren't able to fully address. I love how your techniques are simple and gentle, yet so effective and deep acting. You have enabled me to overcome chronic personal blocks, to heal some difficult relationships, and to move forward in a new direction with my work that has eluded me for years. I feel like I can now sell the vast library of personal growth books that I've amassed over the years, as therapeutic spiritual counseling has made them all obsolete. Thanks again, Dex, for who you are and what you do. He goes on to say, therapeutic spiritual counseling works extremely well, and it reaches a level that other techniques I've been using couldn't. I'm familiar with the concept used in the techniques, so I can really appreciate how skillfully and thoughtfully Dex has developed and honed his techniques into processes that are so elegant and easy to use, yet so effective and deep acting. I feel like I found the holy grail of therapeutic techniques, which I've been seeking for a long time, and I'm delighted to be able to better serve my clients now that I've learned these techniques. Now, yes, I have attracted quite a bit of people with Scientology backgrounds, but by far they're not all of my clients. But I do want to encourage you. Let's say that you've been interested in exploring Scientology. Well, you know, sometimes I have people who contact me because I'm very well known in the Scientology community with my background. And they'll say, Dex, I appreciate what you do, but I want straight L. Ron Hubbard, Church of Scientology, but by an independent practitioner not associated with the church. If that's what they want, I have friends that I can direct them to. And you can at least trust that they are entirely well-meaning. And there's no pressure on them to oversell or have somebody do something expensive that they really don't need, at least the people I would recommend. Okay, but more commonly, they're coming to me because Scientology didn't get them where they wanted to go. But what I'd like to say to you is, you know, if you've ever had an interest in the kind of gains that Scientology promises, or anything else for that matter, you know, I cannot endorse any involvement with the Church of Scientology. Some people's experiences that I personally know of have turned out horrific. And I'm not going to go into those kind of stories right now. It's really not the point here. I will be touching on those things if you follow my next appearance on the Dr. Joy Show on Princeton, New Jersey television. I've been on a few times before. I'll be on again and again. And I will take that up there. But what I want to say is, while I cannot endorse doing that, if you're looking for the kind of results that are promised in the Scientology promotional materials or what you've heard anybody say, and you'd like to have that happen for you, but for the things that are really important to you, and without all the pomp and circumstance of e-meters and levels and unnecessary things and spending decades and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you just want to get to the meaningful changes that you've been hoping for. I can help you with that. And I welcome anybody. I'm very happy to give anybody a free session. And we've got the real stuff here. I'll be very happy to help you get the relief that you yourself are seeking, and so that you can be very happy with those results. And I will give anybody a free session, no strings attached. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, let me just grab something here. You can find me through my website, dexsessions.com. That's the best way to initially reach me, and I will respond. Thank you for your interest. If you have any other questions about this or anything else related to therapeutic spiritual counseling or your own needs or desires for yourself, I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to hearing from you.